I'm gonna spray paint my car. I'm not crazy. This makes more sense than you think. So, trust me, the paint is awful. The question is, how do you make it not awful? Well, you could fix it, patch it basically. But there's so many little spots that you'd have to literally patch half the car. Or you could wrap it. Everybody's like, why don't you just wrap it? Well, because you can't wrap over a surface that's not smooth. If you have rock chips or scratches or little dents, the wrap won't stick. So that's out. Well, in order to wrap it or to fix all that stuff, it's gonna cost so much. It's like, well, at that point, you might as well get a full paint job. Well, a paint job is anywhere from $3,000 to 10. Well, you can spend more than 10 grand on a paint job. So it's like, well, what do? I'm gonna spray paint my car. And if it sucks, then I can wrap it because the surfaces will be smooth. So yeah, anyway, step one is clean my car.
Here it is, nice and clean. It's the before. It's never gonna look this good again, so enjoy it while you can. I gotta use a bunch of different sandpaper and a random sponge I bought that I will never use to scour pad. This is the moment of truth. First big scratch on the car. There's no turning back. I didn't do a great job of filming everything, but I'm actually gonna have to do the whole car in each one of those sandpaper grits. So I started with just the hood to experiment and make sure that this is even gonna work. That's all glaze body filler that you're seeing to fill in rock chips and things. It was, of course, super windy, which doesn't help. I put a black primer down first, and then I went down with paint. So it looks like okay, but not great, to be honest. Which is, you're gonna notice that's gonna be the theme of this entire project. I went with a black hood because I decided to go full ricer, and yeah.
I sprayed it. There's a little bit of striping, but I'm gonna wet sand it tomorrow when it's cured, so I don't think that's gonna be a problem at all. Also, that little spot in the middle right there, a bug landed and I tried to fix it before it was hard. So yeah, same thing. I'll wet sand it. It'll be totally fine. My clear coat should be in the mail tonight. And I'm not gonna clear coat it until I've done the rest of the car. This was honestly way easier than I thought it would be. And I think it looks great. I mean, the car's dusty, so I gotta clean it off again. Big fan. I'm excited. This is gonna look really good. Yeah.
So all of that was day one. It's day two now. I gotta sand the whole thing down. It's a ton of work. Here's a little montage of me just sanding the front bumper by hand. I gotta do all 4 of those sandpaper grits on the entire car. I used some experimental methods and didn't work as well as the sandpaper, so I went back to that pretty quickly. Also, I recruited some help. Had a friend come in for like an hour. This is Brexton. Hello. We sanded a lot. I kind of thought the sanding would take a full day, and I was right. Sanding this whole thing took so long. I think at this point we're up to like the 120 grit. No. I think at this point we're still only done with the first coat of sandpaper. So 80 grit. Another thing, I took off the front bumper and the rear bumper for getting the paint on them better, and I found this little severed wire. It's an episode we're going to have to get into another time, but I think that might explain, I don't know, something. Maybe my AC not working. It's near my AC, but it doesn't look like it's plugged into anything near my AC. So if you've got any tips, I'd love to hear them. That's the difference between, I think it was 120 grit and 80 grit. Gotta get the whole car sanded down again. This is hours later. I had my son with me. Pretty funny experience. We took him inside, and my wife asked, "Did you have a good time with Dad?" And he said, "Yep, don't touch the car and tools." So I might have said that a few times. And I started this, by the way, at about 6:30 in the morning. So I've been at this for hours. I don't even think I ate. I didn't eat pretty much all week. This is what it does when you use water to wash off the clear coat. It beads up super cool. So here it is, end of the day. The car is all the way up to 400 grit. That was a ton of work. My hands already hurt super bad. I know I did a good job though, because my mom said, "Wow, good job." It's day 3, no turning back. The car is sanded. I can't at this point decide to not paint my car unless I officially never, ever want to sell it. I expected fully that turning my garage into a paint booth might take, I don't know, 2 hours. I was wrong. Masking my wheels and car and garage, no exaggeration, took me an entire day. I was shocked. That took so much longer than it should have, but you have to mask it all off because you don't want to get paint anywhere you don't want to get paint. Day 4, things are getting serious. It's early in the morning again. You're supposed to soak all of the paint in hot water so that it sprays evenly and it doesn't gum up at the nozzle. I did the paint prep first with some rubbing alcohol, and that's right onto the priming. If you're gonna go through something like this, I highly recommend getting that little spray trigger. Saved my hands. Holy cow. You also want to make sure that anytime you're spraying, your arm is in motion because it's so easy to get runs. Not as bad with the primer, but you'll see. You'll see. I'm doing 3 coats of primer, 3 coats of paint, 3 coats of clear coat. So here it is. Color reveal. You want to get the edges first, just so you're sure not to forget them. It's really embarrassing to forget the edges. At this point, I should have stopped. To be totally honest, it looks the best after just my first coat. I had no paint runs. It was glossy. I mean, the end product still looks pretty good, and it'll be a lot more durable, but it just wasn't quite as shiny. Doing it in a garage like this, you can't do any mist coats from a distance, especially with this spray paint. It'll dry actually before it hits the paint, and then you end up with a really rough texture. I did way too much research into this. Basically, you kind of want to go close and slow, but just fast enough you don't get paint runs. It's really hard. I had a couple, but for the most part, it looked surprisingly good. Second coat down. I didn't record any of the second coat. I only barely recorded the first coat. Surprisingly clear in spots. You can see kind of the cloudiness when you look at the reflections. But honestly, pretty dang good. This is where it gets good. So my respirator kind of failed up around the nose.
Alright, here's where we are. This is the 3rd coat down. Holy smokes, this took a minute. Looks pretty good. Actually really happy with how this went. A little note for my wife. I heart Katie because she let me do this. Back. And I'm genuinely surprised at some of the glass that I got. If you could tell where you lose it. But it's also spray paint, so you know, bidders can't be choosers. Did such a good job on that one. Yeah.
So after I washed all of the paint off my face with rubbing alcohol, I was left with a blue mustache. So here's the clear coat. This is why it was good that I discovered the failure in my mask before I started using the clear coat. Contents harmful. Contains dimethyl ether, acetone, butyl acetate, xylene, petroleum
2 hours later.
ether acetate. If swallowed, call Poison Control Center and doctor immediately. Do not induce vomiting, rinse eyes. If breathed in, move person into fresh air. Basically, every single review I read of this said that it could seriously mess you up because it's got a hardener in the bottom. It's real stuff. It's not just like a cheap clear coat. These things are like $30 a bottle. So if you decide you're going to do this and you want to use this stuff, please, please, please spend the money on a ventilator and tighten it really, really tight, which I eventually did, and it helped a lot. There was so much shaking involved in these because the clear coat has to be shaken for 2 minutes. Then you pop the hardener. You shake it for another 2 minutes. Then you have to shake as you spray. It's so much shaking. Third clear coat finished. I looked up and all of a sudden I'm done. Days of prep and the painting is done in a couple of hours. Skip ahead if you're going to get grossed out by this, but I had to get the paint out of my nose with 70% rubbing alcohol, and I have a sweet wife who recorded me doing it. And it's so strong, not fun at all. It's the next morning, day 5, and now I gotta take the tape off, pull the paint booth down, back the car out. It's done.
It's like a whole new car.
Yeah, it looks like amazing.
You sound like Kermit the Frog.
These clothes got completely destroyed. Tactical decision. I knew they would. They were old. Got the bumpers back on. Took a long time. Then I tried to wet sand the hood like I said I would 4 days ago. And I've never wet sanded anything and it doesn't look that great. Plus I have these little burn through marks where I went totally through the primer. So if you've seen my previous videos though, you know that I have a very special black paint I use. Check my trunk liner video if you want to know what I'm talking about. But it works great. So now I'm going to put down a couple coats of clear coat, let it dry with everything else. And then surprisingly, the clear coat actually kind of fixed all the shadowy lines, and now it looks fine. It looks cloudy, but I'm just going to keep it. Tons and tons of trash to clean up. It took so long. I think there was some paint floating around in the air too. These shoes used to be white. So now it's all cleaned up. It's put together. The paint booth is down, and this is what the car ended up actually looking like. Hugely shocking. Hugely shocking. There's a couple of places where the clear coat dripped and it left those little bumps. And if you get really close, you can see the paint runs. It's not perfect. You could tell this is not a professional job. It's just imperfect. But if you're like 10 feet away or if it's dark, you would have no idea. Here's a shot of the hood. And tried to get some really cool camera angles. I'm still figuring out how to do this. Once I got it all put together, I just had this one screw left over, and I hope that it's not pivotal for the operation of the car. Anyway, this is the after. Like and subscribe if you liked this video. It was so much work.